Good evening, I'm Earl Gibbs and welcome to Earl Gibbs Live. We're coming to you live here from World Star Studios at Amsterdam Shopping Center, and with me this evening I have the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, Mr. Richard Gibson. How are you doing, sir?
Good evening, Earl. Good to be back again with you. Good evening, TV viewers.
Good to have you here in the program. How are you doing since you last...
Doing well, doing well. You know, in fact, for the 9 months that I'm here, I had 2 major incidents. One where I fell on my bike and fractured my kneecap. That didn't keep me down. I did not lose 1 day from work with that fracture. And recently I also had another scare that had to do with diabetes. My blood sugar went up to a very high amount, but thank God and thanks to the hospital, in one night we brought it down from a level of over 700 back to 140, and the next day I was back at work again.
So you're a real trooper, man. Well, it's good to have you here, and you didn't get to go to Curacao, I understand.
No, Insel Air these days are really terrible. You cannot make plans. I had planned to go to Curacao to meet with the Minister of Finance for dinner last night and to fly back to St. Martin this morning. The flight was supposed to leave at 4:55. And then you heard, well, they delayed because they had to go to Haiti, and we will be departing from St. Martin at 8 o'clock. And then you heard, oh no, that is not going to be so. We'll be departing from St. Martin at 10 o'clock. Well, to depart from St. Martin at 10 o'clock and then to go and have dinner 11:30, 12 o'clock at night was somewhat impossible. So I did not go. Instead, what I attempted to do this morning, all morning, is discuss whatever we had to discuss on the phone with the Minister of Finance in Curacao, and we made quite some headway as far as that is concerned.
And the discussion was centered around what, really? It
is my continuous, determined effort to collect the monies that is owed to us for the division of the assets of the Netherlands Antilles. As you know, there's somewhere around 58 to 60 million that Curacao has that has to be paid out to us. Of course, Holland is also in the mix because they are also part representing the best islands, Bonaire, Saba, and Statia. So it's really a tripartite arrangement. We've spoken several times before, and I am really pushing so that those funds which we need prior to the end of this year can be collected.
Does that make up part of the gold reserves in the central bank?
No. That has nothing to do with the gold reserves of the central bank. It has to do with the assets. Don't forget the central bank, we have a joint union with Curacao as far as central bank is concerned. So that has not been divided. It is the rest of the asset, real estate, monies, companies that were there 10-10-10 that had to be divided by all the islands.
Okay. And doesn't Curacao have a bill too for us?
Whom?
Curacao doesn't have a bill for St. Martin?
No. The net result has already been determined.
Okay.
There was a division committee, kingdom committee, that was formed to go and determine what the assets were and what everybody's share was. That commission filed their final report. That final report from the commission has to be ratified by the 3 governments, Holland, Curacao, and St. Martin. And the ratification process is what we're busy with now to determine finally how much everybody's going to get.
Well, at least it seems like we're going a lot faster than Aruba and Curacao did.
Well, in the division when Aruba stepped out from the Netherlands Antilles, I think it took, 15 years before they completed the division of the assets between Aruba and the Netherlands Antilles.
So what about, I'm sure you're working on the 2017 budget, and how is that doing?
Oh yes, we are spending most of our time trying to beat the deadline. The deadline is September 1st. If we make it, it will be the first time in history that St. Martin presented a budget to the Council of Ministers on time. So we are trying to meet that date. Of course, you encounter a lot of problems, and when you're talking about a budget from a whole country, there's a lot of accounting and checking and verification that goes on, because at the end, when you present your budget, it has to be verified by CFT and approved by CFT. So you got to make sure that there's no mistakes in the budget, and the budget is compiled in the way that the law dictates. You have to prepare a budget. So it's not only a matter of putting numbers, revenues and expenditures in a row, but you also have to have sections of the budget that also explains the policies that you are going to execute and the policies you have executed, and all has to be balanced.
And so the date to have the budget to Parliament is what date? What's it?
Well, according to the law, the budget has to be passed by Parliament by December 15th, and if it's not passed by December 15th, then of course you get exposed to an instruction from the Kingdom government for not having finalized your budget as the law dictates.
And in the last 6 years, we've had, what, 5 instructions?
Well, yes, as you know, last year was really the worst of all, because eventually the government gave up in trying to present a budget. They tried, they had a year and a half to present a budget, and by the time September came around, they could not get the budget balanced. And it was just left like that. When we came in, we was given 3 months to get it done. And we met that deadline, and we got it done, and we got our budget approved. You see, a budget is an important instrument. Without a budget, it's like driving a car with all of the glasses around you painted black that you can't see where you're going. The budget, it gives you a path that you have to follow. It gives you discipline that you have to follow. And if you stick to your budget, then you know you're not going to overspend. You get overspending when you don't stick to your budget, don't have that path. You know, one of the worst things that has happened to us is that for years, government had to deducted premiums from its employees, the same way you and the private sector have to pay AOV, pension for your employees. You deduct that from your employee's salary. And the idea is you need to take that money and pay it to the pension fund and pay it to the sickness and accident fund. It's not your money. It is to provide sickness and accident coverage to your employee, or it's to provide pension for when your employee gets at an age that goes on pension. Now, what has been happening for years is that government deducted sickness and accident premiums from their employees as well as pension premiums from employees and did not pay it to SZB and did not pay it to the pension fund. Instead of that, they spent it. They spent it. And of course, they accumulated a debt between SZB and APS of $183 million. And that's the reason why the budget from last year couldn't be balanced. That's what we confronted when we came in. And we came up with an innovative way of approaching it. We had to sell the government building. Because of that, we had to sell the government building in order to generate funds. And we had to commit the monies we were supposed to get from the division of assets of the Netherlands Antilles. When that money comes in, that I'm fighting to get, that money goes straight to APS to pay off that $183 million that was built up in the way I just explained. It was totally irresponsible.
Now, this was done by many previous governments.
Yes, for many years. For many years. It's not only the government from last year. No, it's government last year and the government before them and the government before them. It became a practice that was totally irresponsible, and that's why we built up this 183 million in debt.
So, Skip, so when you look at you're in office now, what, 10 months?
Yes, we're in about the 10th month now.
Yeah. You've seen how the government operate. It could be very, very difficult to control spending in government.
It's not very, very difficult, no.
But the culture of government in St. Martin is the attitude of that to just spend, spend, spend.
No, I don't even say it's a culture. It's a question of responsibility. You either assume that responsibility and apply the discipline, because at the end of the day, when you spend and spend and spend like you have a party all the time, spending, 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 and you don't have the revenue, at the end of the day, it is the man in the street have to pay the bill. Now that is unfair, and that is totally irresponsible. Government, you can't say if you are responsible, yes to everything, or no to everything. You have to watch your budget, be disciplined in your budget. Look, I always tell people, my mother always said the same thing. You can't spend what you don't have. If you keep spending what you don't have, what's going to happen? What's going to happen is what happened to Puerto Rico. You run the risk of losing everything. Thank God we only lose the government building, which also I negotiated that we will be able to buy back if we can raise the revenues in future. But that's what happened. You will lose what you have if you keep spending, spending, spending without discipline.
Is it true that there was a time when the CFT was strongly suggesting that St. Martin sell off many of those assets, like corporations that are owned by government?
There were several suggestions made, and in order to bring this debt of 183 million under control, there were, from creditors, suggestions made, well, I would finance the payment if you give me this property, that property, the shares from the airport, the shares from, as collateral for it. Yes, it wasn't a suggestion by the CFT. It was requirements, or at least demands, or at least requests made by creditors of this 183 million.
So at least now that's under control.
That's under control, and the way I negotiated it is that we had to sell the government building alone, and plus commit that when we get the money from the Division of Assets of the Netherlands Antilles, that money will go also in settlement of the debt.
Now you're also a candidate on the NA for the September 26th parliamentary election.
Yes, I am the number 8 candidate on the NA list for the September 28th. It was not an easy decision, but it was a logical decision, as you know. With the budget that we prepared this year, the CFT has pronounced St. Martin has turned the corner. That was the headline. St. Martin has turned the corner. It would be a pity that we turn the corner and head in the right direction, that all of a sudden now the foundation that we built is going to be eroded by not exerting the discipline that has to be exerted in order to keep your house in order. So I had a choice: go home or continue, or at least try to continue to keep the process that we've started to its completion. You know, if you have 3 budgets in a row approved by the CFT, then the question comes up as to whether you should have a CFT or whether or not you will be able to do your own supervision. Well, I think that is important, and that's a milestone. And my aim is to reach that milestone, to reach that goal. We're a country, and we don't want to have other people looking over our shoulders. We need to show that we can do it ourselves, and I believe we can.
You know, earlier I said to you that there's this culture in government of spend, 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 and you said, no, it wasn't really a matter of culture. But you know, Minister, privately, a number of people in the civil service, they're not happy with you as Minister of Finance in terms of your policies on trying to at least hold back on spending.
Yes, and there are also a lot of people who are a little wiser than that, who knows you can't spend what you don't have, and you need to set perimeters within which you have to operate. If not, you're going to fall back in the same situation we had before, where now you're going to have to take premiums from those same civil servants to go and pay for those extra things and build up 183 million debt. Look, it is like anything else. If you do not show the responsibility, make the decision to stick to your budget, you are going to run into financial problems. And when you run into financial problems, it is not that little group who is unsatisfied because you are doing the right thing, but it's a much bigger group who is going to suffer from the consequences. And I want to say again, take a look at Puerto Rico, the situation Puerto Rico is in.
Because there are some who claim that, you know, Simrata needs to probably spend more because there's not much activity taking place, and it's government's responsibility to at least to pump some money into the economy.
Right, and where does government get the money from? To pump into the economy. Government has to have it. But the fact is that government does not have it. So when government does not have it, it cannot pick it from out of the sky. It has to set a plan and a foundation that's solid going forward and slowly but surely get out of this rut. More revenues have to be created in order to spend more. You cannot say, well, you know, the economy is slowing down worldwide as well as here, so government got to put in money. But where does government get the money from? It's from you. It is from all the citizens. That's where, and businesses, that's where government gets its money from. And if the money is insufficient, then there is no money that government can pump. You can borrow money, but to borrow money, you have to have a foundation that gives the persons who are lending you the money the confidence that they will get paid back. And you got to fix the economy, and you've got to do the things that needs to be done. Let me give you an example. We only have tourism basically as the pillar of which we depend on for income. Since that's the only pillar we have, you would think that we would do our utmost best to make sure that that product, the only product we're producing, is excellent to attract more people to come. Now, what do you see as far as the numbers are concerned? For years, the numbers are flat. For years, flat and going down. And the potential that is going to go down further is there. Why is that? There was a time when we were the only game in town. There was a time with Mullet Bay and Concord Hotel. We had tourism in Little Bay, whilst Anguilla didn't have, St. Kitts didn't have, Antigua hardly, Aruba didn't have, they were in oil. Curacao didn't have, they were in oil. So our tourism was very successful because we basically was the only game in town. Now look at how many people since then have also participated in the tourist industry. St. Kitts came up, Aruba came up, Curacao, big in tourism today too, Anguilla. Well, that pot is shrinking because more and more people are participating for that tourist dollar. Now you have to compete. If you do not compete and do the same things you were doing before, you're going to stay where you are. And that's what's happened to us. We need to take a step forward, take a step to improve our tourist product. It always bothers me when I drive down the Simpson Bay area, the Simpson Bay stretch. When I say the Simpson Bay stretch, I'm talking from the airport, or from where Wynwood Island Bank and the druggist is, all the way up to Tropicana Casino. You must try to walk that stretch as a tourist or a citizen, or even drive in your car and look. When it rains, water all over, splashes on people. People cannot walk there. Tourists can't, nor can citizens. And this is a tourist island, and we have actually led the way in tourism since 1962. Are you telling me that that strip, for the good of our tourist trade, could not have been improved with a proper pedestrian walk, some trees and plants to make it touristy?
Yeah.
How many years? Today, it's still the same way. Those are the things we have to see. We can't continue doing what we did before. We need to change. If we don't change, we are going to lose the edge that we have. Change means you got to produce a better product, friendlier service, better than your competitors, to be able to survive in this global world. Mind you, we do not have another industry. And since it's the only thing we have, we should cherish it and make sure it's the best compared to any place else.
Not only that, if you look at the United States, in the early days when St. Martin started, even up to the 1990s, very few states had casinos. Now many states have casinos. People don't have to leave and come to the Caribbean to a casino anymore either. So the competition is even expanded more.
That's right. So when you see that and you sit back and you think and you say, what to do? What is the alternative? If you do nothing, you have to have this vision, this commitment you have to have in the interest of your own survival, the survival of your people, to be able to set a plan, put in place the things that need to be put in place to improve, like fixing that strip down Simpson Bay, and there are many other areas. One of the things we have, setbacks we have compared to Aruba, is tours. Besides the normal tourist trade, Aruba has a whole array of tours that tourists spend to get them to spend more money. We hardly have any. We need to create. We have Fort Amsterdam there. It is a site that, if improved, if we can exploit it, would be a tourist destination, could be a tour for your cruise ship passengers or other tourists on the island, for them to spend more money and leave more money behind. In Aruba, the tourists leave more money behind than St. Martin. Why? Because all of these additional increments of income that we could have, we have not developed.
Aruba also have more stay-over tourists than St. Martin now, percentage-wise.
I'm not certain of that, but
we have more
flights,
visitors by ship, cruise visitors.
By flights also.
But Aruba, in terms of stay-over visitors, they're
and they got five-star hotels, and they have Aruba has a excellent tourist product.
And also
our tourist product really, really needs improvement for us to have a chance in future.
But the government that you support now, have they ever sit down and discuss the Simpson Bay Strip and what could be done there?
Yes, and we have approved a plan or a project. The section from Tropicana to the bridge is the first phase, and the other phase is going to come later. But that phase It's already approved by the Council of Ministers.
Because this week I had a Member of Parliament, Sylvia Matsu, here, and he presented a plan, what they're going to do with the boardwalk, extended all the way to Fort Amsterdam, put in more piers for giga yachts and everything else. It's beautiful. It's really transformed this island.
Yes, you got to find the financing for it, and you have to have the capital budget for it if you're going to do it yourself. Maybe we should start embarking on public-private partnerships to get such projects going. That is another issue. There is, from the 9 months that I'm there, I'm seeing a dialogue between the public sector and the private sector is not ongoing. For the 9 months I've been there, not one time have I had a meeting with the private sector to be able to discuss, because we're all in the same boat together, to discuss plans, ways to improve. Of course, we all have been very, very busy the last 9 months, putting the foundation in place that we put in place. But going forward, I think government cannot do it alone. You have to have a dialogue with the private sector. They're not the enemy. Quite the contrary. They're a partner. And we all need to look for solutions. In fact, we're going to be forced to look for solutions given what's going on worldwide. The expectation is that growth, GDP growth, is going to be meager. I mentioned to somebody earlier this week, in the beginning of this year, January, the projection was 3.5% growth for the United States in 2016. Not long after that, they look at the situation and say, oh no, it's not going to be 3.5%, it's going to be 2.5%. This week, they're projecting now 1% growth. That will affect us again. So we need to pull up our socks, pull up our boots, get serious, do the right things, make the plans just to survive, because the way it looks, there is going to be decline. And if you do not have a vision and you do not have a plan to address these things, it's just going to get worse.
Well, we live in some very dangerous times where many governments are bankrupt.
Yes. If you look at the debt to GDP ratio of St. Kitts, Jamaica, Antigua, they have accumulated so much debt that there is no room left for investment. That's what suffers from it. And no investments means fewer jobs, fewer economic activities. And the reason is they have borrowed and borrowed and borrowed, even went to the World Bank and borrowed, and at a certain moment you reach your maximum, and then you have a problem. Thank God St. Martin is in a pretty good situation. It has one of the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the world. So we've got room. Of course, we have the CFT who keeps an eagle eye on us as to how we are managing our budget and managing our debt. There's certain, if you have to borrow, if you want to borrow outside of your capital approved, if you have an approved budget and you have an approved capital expenditure budget, if you want to borrow more, you need to get CFT's permission. So they will then go and look and see, hey, is it something that should be done, justified? Can you pay the money back? That's what we have.
So what do you say about, I've heard you mention many times about tax compliance is in the low 20% range. Any plans to increase that?
Well, tax compliance is a serious problem, but it should surprise no one. Tax compliance has to do with the ability of the tax department to collect, to service its customers, to have a system that's efficient, that smoothly brings about tax compliance. For instance, an online system to file taxes, an online system to pay for taxes. Right now, the way the taxpayer is treated is really ridiculous. And it comes because I say politicians don't want to invest in the tax department because they don't want to hear about taxes.
So are you going to invest in?
Pardon me?
Are you going to invest in the tax department?
Well, I have directed a letter to CFT, and we are now in discussion with it. We're now in discussion asking them to provide St. Martin with a loan, long-term loan, of 37 million. 37 million spread over 15 years. Why? So that the burden for interest payment annually does not seriously affect the budget when you spread it over so many years. Key is the investment in the tax department because it's on demand, on the equipped. You as a taxpayer, you go to the tax department, you have to go to the vineyard. When you have to pay, you have to go over by the stadium across from the new administration building to pay by the island receiver. If you file a complaint or you file an objection, you got to go back to Vineyard Building, and they have you going back and forth, because instead of having those services in one building, it's in several buildings. That is not good. So the part of the 37 million is to invest in software, hardware, training, and a building.
A building?
Yes. Now, if you do not take this step, it's only going to get worse. When I say if you do not take it, it's going to get worse, taxes is something that people always sort of reject. But without taxes, throughout history, you cannot get the money to do the development that you need to do. The whole idea that is there is to make taxes less aggressive, in other words, lower tax rates, make St. Martin more competitive in the region so it can attract investments to St. Martin, and to broaden the tax base that would permit us to receive or collect more revenue. That framework is already there. It has to be refined, and then you run the problem again. Oh, but what you need is tax legislation writers, lawyers, to fill in those portions, draft those laws that the framework calls for, and then you run the problem, oh, you don't have those tax lawyers. Tax lawyers, legislative lawyers are scarce. They don't have them. They cost money. You don't have the money. So what you get, the situation just sits there. That has to be addressed and straightened out. I think everybody will benefit if we straighten out the tax department. Look what had to happen last year because of insufficient money. Subsidies to NGOs had to be cut by 10%. 10%. And was unnecessary if certain steps had been taken. So my 2017 budget, I am working towards not having to repeat that, to make sure the NGOs get their full amount, no cuts in their subsidies. And we're going to do that by accessing sources of revenues that we hadn't accessed before. Let me give you an example. As you know, we are presently approaching and trying to get a new hospital built. The new hospital is going to be funded by SZV. For them to fund it, they want to take over the property where the present hospital is. And he said to them, you can buy that. You have to purchase it at market value. SMMC owes the government approximately 7 million guilders in taxes. So the idea is if we succeed, when SMMC is sold to SZV, SMMC will be receiving the value of the building and the land there, and from that value and building, the first thing they'll have to pay is the 7 million guilders taxes that they owe. That's the way we're going to find some additional funds to make sure that NGOs get their full amount, as opposed to what had to happen in 2016, cutting their budget by 10%.
Mr. Gibson will also be taking part in the September 26th parliamentary elections for Parliament of St. Martin. You're the number 8 candidate on the NA list, right?
Number 8 candidates on the alliance list, yes.
Okay. Now, Mr. Minister, when you look at the central bank of Curaçao and St. Martin, in the last 5 years, we had a lot of discussion about what will be the currency, if it's going to remain Antillean guilder or a US dollar. What has been your position?
Of course, I'm just there 9 months, so I have not had a position before that. But to give you some insight into that problem, a monetary union has its advantages and it has its disadvantages. All countries have to manage their foreign exchange. Their foreign exchange has to be, according to economists, maintained at about 3 months of expenditures. Up to now, I think from the monetary union, Curaçao has benefited more than St. Martin. Why? Because St. Martin has contributed a substantial amount in foreign exchange, its tourist trade, to the union. But there could be a time, like we've had in 1995, you had a hurricane like Luis and Marlin, where economically you are actually flat on your back, and then you're not generating any foreign exchange. Then in those instances, it's a good thing to have a partner who shares its foreign exchange with us. But like I said before, for the past 5 years, I believe that Curaçao has benefited more from the monetary union than we have. The other problem is, with a monetary union, is you have to have a joint central bank. That was agreed upon 10-10-10. And you have also shared and know about the problems that have gone on in the management of the central bank, on the board, appointment of appointees. There's a competition there between Curaçao and St. Martin, trying to maintain equilibrium. In fact, there was even a riot once, I think 2 years ago, trying to stop members of the board from participating in a meeting at the central bank. Just a few seconds, please. I want to ask if you can hold that thought, please, because I have some people holding.
Sure. Please, come back to you in just a moment. Oral Gibbs Live and call. Hello.
Yes, good night.
Good night.
Good night to you, Mr. Gibson.
Good evening.
The Minister of Justice. I cannot sit in front of my television all the time and look at the program. I must call in to congratulate the Minister for doing a good job. And
thank you.
Continue doing a good job and keep up the good work. God bless him.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Have another call for a few minutes and then we come in. You're live, call. Hello.
Yes, hello, good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Henry Brookson. Good evening to Minister Gibson.
Good evening, Henry.
Hello?
Yes, you're on that. Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, Mr. Gibson, thank you for your clear and inspiring presentation. You are completely right when you say there is hardly any commitment here for the island. It sometimes seems that no one cares. We continue to leave garbage on our beaches. There are filthy areas. The clearing of the beaches, I must say, was done at Mullet Bay better than by the previous company. I'm not against awarding contracts to other companies. Of course, we got to look for the good people and companies that do a good job and the competitive price. But what we also have to do is set terms of references and control and see that people are really doing what they need to do according to the contract. To continue with Mullet Bay, I go there every Sunday. If you see, Sunday is the primary day that everybody goes to the beach. But if you see how filthy it is there, it's unbelievable. And then I think, why does government not stipulate to the company that on Sunday mornings, 8 o'clock, clean the beaches? When it gets busy at 12 o'clock, come back again, clean the beaches.
Okay, Mr. Brooks, and due to time, I'm going to ask you to be a little short, please, in the question to the minister, please.
Yes, okay, but I'm just wanted to ask the minister if he can look into that. And then secondly, the parking at Mullet Bay.
Okay.
Last Sunday, there were so many cars parked there. And then I think, isn't it something that government can ask the owner of Mullet Bay to assist in creating more parking?
Okay.
Because Sunday it was very dangerous. Cars couldn't park next to each other.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. I'm going to have the minister respond to you, please. All right? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Minister.
Well, basically, the item, generally speaking, the item is we need to improve our tourist product. The filthiness that Mr. Brookson is referring to, of course, is unacceptable. And that's why I said before, if tourism is the only pillar of the economy, and if there is so much competition in the tourist industry, then everybody have to get on board to be able to make sure that our tourist product is the best. I refer to the tourist product of Aruba that I admire in terms of how good it is. And we're not doing half the things that Aruba does. As far as Mullet Bay is concerned, don't forget it's a private property. Mullet Bay, they have been all these years allowing people to get on the property, parking. They use the entire property for parking. I at this point can't say what the owner will or will not do in this respect. The only thing is that we should be grateful that for so many years their property has been made available to the public at large, and they have a special parking area. It's small on an ongoing basis that's available. I don't know. There has been some controversy in the past relative to Mullet Bay and its property, but under the Constitution that we have to respect private property. It is specifically put in there. So it's a question of dialogue and maybe some kind of compensation, maybe some kind of infrastructure so you could collect for parking. I do not know. But I'm sure that, in the private sector or somebody could come up. I mentioned before about a public-private partnership. Somebody could be innovative, creative, and approach them to see if something can be worked out that's going to be good for everybody.
Okay, let me take a call for your minister. Oral Gibbs live on caller. Hello.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Gibson.
Good evening, sir.
To the Minister Gibson.
Good evening.
Concerning a previous interview that the good minister had with the tax issue. According to his tax, the previous interview that he had, I was made to understand that the St. Martin people in general, one of our we make from like $26,000 a year, but still we don't pay no tax. Isn't there a way that the minister could get a hold of for these people to pay tax, especially the businesses? Thank you, and keep up with the job.
Thank you. Well, we've addressed that really, where I'm saying to you that In the past, politicians didn't want to invest in the tax department, and now we have a mess on our hands today because of it. I mentioned that, yes, to do something about it, we need to invest, and that I've requested and are in discussion with the CFT for a loan of $37 million to be able to get the manpower, the infrastructure, the software, the hardware, to be able to fix these problems and not fly by night fix them, but fix them permanently. I mentioned, or I should mention, for every 1 percentage point of increase in compliance, directly goes 20 million guilders to the budget. With that 20 million, if we increase it by 2%, 40 million, with that extra 40 million in the budget, there's so much more that we can do for the public of St. Martin. But to get to that point, you need to fix the engine. Fix the engine. And fixing the engine means making tax compliance easier by online filing, online payment, getting the software and the hardware that works, not having people going from the vineyard back to the receiver's office back and forth, and having the personnel in place to deal with the objections filed by the taxpayer.
Minister, earlier we were speaking about the central bank. You mentioned also there was one time where almost a riot or something, and we had to stop there. So maybe if you want.
Yes. Well, you know, there were issues. There were fights between Curacao and St. Martin relative to certain issues, who should be appointed. And the population in Curacao blocked the entrance to the central bank to stop the meeting that was going to be held from going through. So I started out by saying there are advantages and there are disadvantages as far as the monetary union is concerned. Now, one of the disadvantages, I think a big disadvantage is, there is over 250 million guilders sitting in a vault, St. Martin's share, in the central bank to support the monetary union, to support the pegging of the guilder to the dollar. That money is there because it's required, but it's unproductive. If you were to separate the monetary union, that 250 million would come straight to St. Martin as capital. So you need to make, and I have not come down on one side or the other yet and making a determination. I'm just saying to you there are advantages and disadvantages. That 250 million is capital that we could use to do a lot here. Of course, you will have to deal with supervision of financial institutions here, because supervision you have to have at all times. Well, you know, Puerto Rico does not have a central bank. So you could easily have supervision of your financial institution done by another central bank, whether it's the Dutch central bank, whether it's the Aruba central bank, whether it is the...
You're just paying for the service.
Exactly. And then you have your supervision of your financial institutions. So it is a decision that has to be made and weighed. Of course, once you have the separation of the monetary union, now foreign exchange assistance back and forth, when it's needed, no longer will be there. That's a risk. Seigniorage, which is the exchange between the gull and the dilla whenever there is a fee that's paid by the bank. Of course, you're going to lose that income for seigniorage. So there's a lot of consideration back and forth as to what you should do, and probably we have a lot of other things to worry about right now that
that can stay for a while.
That's right.
Let's take a call for you, Minister. Oral Gibbs live in call. Hello.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Gibbs.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening.
And also good evening to the hatchet man, Mr. Gibson. Just want to know that I'm very proud of.
I don't know why they call me that, because all I'm trying to do is making sure that we don't go bankrupt and making sure we don't have to raise taxes in any way. So if that means that we have a hatchet man that's avoiding that, okay, I take that title.
Well, I love the term, the hatchet man, you know, so it really suits him, and I'm very proud Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. It's
Yes.
ready to listen to you.
I'm very proud of what he has done and what he's doing right now. So that hasn't been really suits him. I wanted to ask the minister, seeing that he wants to invest in the tax department, wouldn't it be a burden on the taxpayers to repay that loan back? I mean, how does he go about if the loan comes through, or if he has another term in office and the loan comes through? How is he going to go about paying that money back? I mean, is it going to be a huge impact on the taxpayers again, or what?
Yeah, I'll tell you. It's it really is simple. I just mentioned that if you could increase tax compliance by 2%, you need to take in consideration that OECD countries have a tax compliance of 34%. You need to take in consideration that the Caribbean countries have a tax compliance of 26%. We are 22.5%. Okay, I'm saying let us improve the tax compliance by 2% to 24.5%. That would raise $40 million a year. You could pay back that loan in 1 year, but that's not what we're doing. We're asking the CFT to give us the $37 million for 15 years. Now, in 15 years, you improve your tax department, you have no problem whatsoever repaying that loan. Like I tell you, the advantages in 2 years are going to be $40 million. That easily pays back that loan in 2 years, but you have it for 15 years. Plus, you will continue every year to have that $40 million going straight to your budget.
So, Mr. Gibson, again, you're a candidate on the National Alliance list for the September 26 parliamentary elections. A lot of people were surprised when they saw your name.
Well, the history has been that people like me don't go on lists for elections. So from that point of view, I can understand the surprise. On the other hand, the logic of doing it, I think, as you hear from comments here and there, people love what I'm doing. They have confidence in the course and the foundation we have set. And I think a lot of them would like to see that continue. And if they do, vote on September 26th on candidate number 8 on the National Alliance.
Right. So again, you're working hard on the 2017 budget.
2017 budget, I have a lot of hope that that is going to come in on time and balance.
All right. So I guess everyone will be happy when that happens.
Yes, they should be, because it opens the door for another 20-30 million in capital expenditures for St. Martin. It opened the door so that government can do a lot of things to improve the quality of life of the people of St. Martin. So yes, keep your fingers crossed, and let's hope we can get it done.
And if you can do it in 3 successive years, then it's really history.
Yes, according to the Kingdom law on supervision, we balance the budget of 2016. If we get the 2017 balance, and then one more time, get a 2018 balance.
And on time?
And on time. Well, you don't even have to be on time.
Oh, okay.
As long as you get it approved and balanced, that you then, and of course, improve the quality of the budget, because it's not only balancing, it's also the quality of the various segments of the budget. If we can get that done, then we can have a serious talk with Holland about what we're going to do with the CFT, if we're going to change it. I believe CFT has been helpful, not only to St. Martin, but to all of the countries, to get them to exercise fiscal discipline. People do not like to be disciplined. The same with children don't like to be disciplined. Nobody likes to be disciplined, but sometimes discipline is necessary. And I think that the CFT has done that. I have issues with them. We argue a lot on things that I don't agree with. But at the end of the day, I think it's a useful tool. And even when the CFT is gone, we should have something in its place to make certain that fiscal discipline is always recognized and applied, because if not, you're going to get in a situation like we have in Puerto Rico.
Well, Minister, again, thank you and much success. All right?
Thank you very much. Thank you, TV listeners.
And that's it for now. I'll see you next time. Until then, good night. Take care. Bye.